Who are the dragons and elementals? What is a Merkaba anyway? And what does it mean to sell your soul or sign on the dotted line? Hi everybody, my name is Chloe Hudson and welcome to World Peace Project. So today we are going to do a Q&A, and I would like to let you know that this Sunday I will be beginning a 5-week series course on advanced matrix decoding. This will be 5 weeks every Sunday. We'll skip 1 week. The class is going to be very comprehensive. If you are intermediate or advanced healer or a metaphysics adept, you know, this is a fabulous course to expand your awareness, bring in more tools to help you protect your energetics as the energies and the beings and the trickery is getting a little bit more daunting. And we would love to have you. It will be in Walnut in California at Jupiter Soundscape. The total is $275. And each course is 2 hours in length. I will be creating a pre-recorded online course that will be offered after the fact if you are nowhere near California or you just can't make it. So let's get into the questions. Okay, so Parker Hammer asks, what is the difference if you sign on the dotted line or not, besides getting the money, of course, for the new financial system when it comes? I mean, what are the consequences for signing and getting the money? So he's referring to my video about the Anunnaki agenda, Saint Germain and Nasara. Real quick, NESARA is the National Economic Security and Reformations Act. This is talking about the debt jubilee and the payouts. So if you don't know what that is, you may want to go ahead and check out that video and come right back here. So Parker, what is the difference of if you sign on the dotted line or not, besides getting the money for the new financial system? Okay, so I appreciate the way that probably Alexandra talked about this, because there's 2 parts to this. There is the debt jubilee, the debt forgiveness, and then the payouts. So I appreciate and resonate with her point of view that the debt jubilee in its own is neutral. You won't be able to control that. It's just going to happen if it happens. You know, one morning you may wake up and all debt has been wiped, which can serve you obviously if you have debt. The second part is where we get into some dangerous territory here. We live in an inverted matrix where, as per the law of the infinity verse, we command our sovereign energy and therefore must give agreement and consent to anything that imposes into our will or shifts the way in which we make choices and our life will play out. Signing on the dotted line is a very clear physical, obviously that's a 3rd dimensional signature, and for whatever, any hidden agendas, any fine print that represents and plays out through the different dimensions. So many of us believe that signing on the dotted line for NESARA is not only signing over certain rights or choices in regard to the way your life is presented in this matrix, and you make an exchange for money, but you are also signing over access, control, and ownership to a level of your soul, and they're trying to command, control, contain your spirit in a way that can anchor you into these inverted verses for much longer, much more expansive repercussions beyond this lifetime, beyond this human verse, this human experience, as Lauda Leon likes to say. So it plays out well beyond this timeline. You know, their whole agenda here, in a really crude way to say it, is the controllers want to own your soul so they can take it into other finite timelines where you can be trapped and ensnared for a whole nother millennia as a slave soul energy. So this is handed to us on a silver platter in a way that it could enhance your life in these fleeting, maybe 50 years left, 100 years left, whatever you've got. And the trade-off is massive because the repercussions are well beyond this reality. Okay, so that's what it means in my perspective. Parker also asks, what does selling your soul mean in the situation? Like, will they control you when you die and you'll be trapped in reincarnation cycle? And so I kind of partially already answered that. And yes, it's not that you'll necessarily be trapped in this reincarnation cycle only, because they are working to create another one that doesn't have to abide by the laws of agreement and consent. They're creating their own artificial matrix that can play out in a way where they don't have to skirt around the laws of the universe in the same way. It's a much more separated matrix that's their own inverted experience, their own anti-verse. So that trap, that ensnarement would be a really long experience in the grand scheme of things, and it wouldn't even play by the rules of this universe. As we know, there are laws, there are the need for consent and agreement. They do have to show their agendas in some form or fashion, even though we have to decode it. So, it's in a way, it's kind of beyond selling your soul. It can be like they commandeer your spirit in a way where you can get ensnared in this kind of like anti-verse wormhole Death Star technology, and it is very difficult to get out or come back because, as you know, as we see in this verse already, the memory swiping and the ability for us to access spirit is already daunting, for us to remember who we are and wake up to that in a multidimensional way. It's challenging. So imagine if they were to take your soul, your essence out of this experience with these rules, and it's all their game. So it's definitely not something that I would wish on anybody. Okay, so then Parker asks, he says, can you talk about the elemental spirits and the dragon collective, the world server pyramids that make up the matrix, the 5D crystal fairy kingdoms, and also our own personal pyramids of light and Merkaba? So let's start with Merkaba here. I really enjoyed I kind of paraphrased something that came through on the Cosmic Agency channel when they were talking about time. And the galactic being speaking basically said, and I kind of molded what she said together, but what I gathered from it is a Merkaba is basically a hypercube of space-time times space. So it's a way in which we travel. It's a Stargate where we can travel in a Merkaba or our Merkaba. Now, Merkabas can be encoded and programmed with whatever information in whatever space-time zones that Merkaba is being programmed to journey to. So one needs to be careful about which Merkabas they access, okay? Because a lot of what happens, as we've learned in these spiritual metaphysical experiences, is it sounds all well and good. So you're like, okay, let me visualize on this Merkaba, and it'll do whatever it's telling me it's going to do. Well, let's hope that's so, because if that Merkaba is programmed in any particular way to extract your codes or to invert your codes or whatever it is, then you're making agreements to access it and infuse that into your energetics and journey to those spaces for whatever it actually is programmed for. So there's a more thorough definition of Merkaba that I wanted to read to you guys, and this is from Voyager's The Secrets of Amenti by Ashayana Dean. And she says, Merkaba fields. Merkaba field mechanics. All planetary spheres possess sets of counter-rotating electromagnetic fields within and surrounding the planetary body. In the first dimensional frequency bands, Earth has a magnetic spiral of energy composed of 12 base tone frequency patterns of density 1. This counterclockwise rotating magnetic spiral pulls energy transmitted by the sun into the density 1 portion of Earth's morphogenetic fields. I'm going to pause here because, Parker, this is going to take me to a part of your question when you're asking about the elementals. So I perceive the elementals anchored into our experience of Earth as one density. This counterclockwise rotating magnetic spiral pulls energy transmitted by the sun into density 1 portion of Earth's morphogenetic field. Earth's density 1 iron core crystal, what I deem her heart when we go into the grounding and I say access her heart, we access her iron core crystal. Earth has a clockwise rotating electrical first density energy spiral composed of the 12 overtone frequency patterns of density 1. The electrical spiral transmits energy from the first density portion of Earth's morphogenetic field downward, where the energy is then picked up by the first density magnetic spiral of the sun. Electricity is masculine, magnetism is feminine. A planetary sphere has such a set of counter-rotating electromagnetic spirals within each dimensional frequency band. The two spirals form two pyramidal-shaped energy constructs. Pause. So the two pyramidal-shaped energy constructs are what, when I tell you to access the torus field, which looks like a donut, right, where you're rotating the energy up and out the center in 360 degrees, if you looked at that linearly, it looks like a pyramid mirroring a pyramid, okay? And then that center point is the primary stargate, your heart, where the energetics of your dielectric, which is what a lightning is made out of, and your magnetics spiral through this torus field. That's your natural stargate, electromagnetic energy. So dielectricity and magnetic energy, which is what sentient beings all function off of, produce electricity. Electricity is a more third density experience. That's important because they've taught us that we have electromagnetic fields. We actually have dielectric magnetic fields that then produce electricity. So the two spirals form two pyramidal-shaped energy constructs, and the magnetic spiral is inverted within the upright electrical spiral. The collective construct of the two energy fields is that of a star tetrahedron, and this structure is referred to as a Merkaba field. Every planet, object, and person has a Merkaba field with each of the 15-dimensional bands. It is the energy construct through which energetic substance emerges from and returns into the morphogenetic field, the structure through which energy and consciousness enter and leave manifestation. So this is what happens when we manifest. That's the way the energetics is cycling, and which is why I always have you these days focus on your torus field, because that's already how the energy is moving. So when you become more conscious of that, you can utilize it more thoroughly. Morphogenesis is the biological process that causes an organism to develop its shape. It is one of the three fundamental aspects of developmental biology, along with the control of cell growth and cellular differentiation, unified in evolutionary developmental biology, as per Wikipedia's definition. So going through a morphogenetic process is what gives us our shape in matter, okay? And that experience of the star tetrahedron, the hypercube, the Merkaba, is what facilitates the action steps of the dielectric magnetic energy to produce electricity, which assists in the actualizing of our matter. I hope that that makes sense. Okay, going back to your questions, Parker, you also asked about the elemental spirits. Okay, so the elemental spirits are different than the elements. The elements are the third density. This is how I perceive it. They're actually first density, but we see them in our third density realm. That are the first density representations of the more multi-density spirits or beings. I love the elementals. Now, like all things, elementals, beings, humans, spirits, souls, whatever you want to call it, can either align with benevolence or malevolence, what we term service to others or service to self, positive, negative polarity, however you want to say it. So I want you to be aware of that, that elementals also have inverted agendas. So we need to clarify what's what. And I love and work with the elemental spirits a lot. I always commune with them, especially the devas. The overlighting devas of any zone of Earth are the protectorates of that specific location. Many devas, many elementals have been misused, ignored, have been raped, pillaged, and plundered. And they're very upset. So what's extremely common for me, when I go into a house clearing, let's say, the first thing I do is I tune into the devas of the space and I check in, and more often than not, they're really upset and they're like livid. They're really angry. And they're very passionate about it because they're horrified and they're incensed that humans would come in and dig up their land and do all sorts of horrible stuff without acknowledging them, without advising and counseling with them. And it's a very upsetting thing to them. That's their existence, that they're there to guard that space. So I work to assist and appease them and help them to be heard. And they can often be easy to please. They're wonderful beings. We are made of elements, you know. We are completely comprised of elemental bodies. So, you know, we are of the earth and we will go back to the earth. And talking to the elementals in your body can greatly assist your health. One time I had a client who the elements came forward and they started explaining to her what they do in her body. Each element has their own form and function and how they manifest in her. And they were asking her to start working with them directly in that way. So I love the elemental spirits, and they're very important. They need healing and cleansing just as much as us, just as much as Earth. Now, an interesting side note that I want to bring up, that there's a wonderful definition of it in the Pleiadian Agenda book, is the understanding of a miasm. So a miasm is a conglomeration of elements and trauma trapped in any zone or point of your body. When we experience trauma, there is kind of a karmic reciprocation going on of that experience, where elementals in that area of your body trap and coagulate with the trauma and anchor it in as a miasm. And a miasm will often bring in where the area of stress or pain or dis-ease is. You feel it physically. Now, the Pleiadian Agenda, Satya of Alcyone, explains that you know, humans have a lot of karma with Earth and the elements. So it's been said also, kind of a side note from the Pleiadian that Barbara Marciniak channeled, said that you know, the more we keep extracting elements and crystals and gems and whatever out of the earth, the more we have to show ourselves that we've earned those values. So we create more work for ourselves, because the more of these types of material elements that we harbor and extract and use, we then have to prove to ourselves that we've earned the value of that. So it creates more karmic work, more karmic load for us. Now, the elementals, when they get trapped as a miasm, we already have this karmic load of all of the raping and pillaging and plundering we've done. And those elements and those zones of earth also require the healing. You know, there's forgiveness processes that have to be made. There's repentance. There's this whole thing of making right. And the miasms are a personal representation of this. So you can literally communicate with these miasms in your body. Talk to the elements that have lodged into your tissue and tell them, thank you for bringing my attention and my awareness to whatever specific trauma has happened in my life. And I acknowledge in this moment or this experience that you are showing me that we have a reflection of the pain and the trauma that we have gone through. My experience was in my human form, your experience was in your elemental form, but it's harmonizing, it's matching in frequency. I am ready to heal mine, and I ask you, please release out of my body, down my grounding cord, back into the core of Gaia, so that we can both be healed and cleared of our karma. So the elemental beings are very much tied in with our existence. You know, we know that things are macro to micro, and the elements are more micro to our macro experience, and we are complete element. I mean, we would not exist in this physical form without the elements. So it is all that we are. They are us, we are them. So it's very important to acknowledge the elemental beings. You ask about the dragon collective, Parker. I love the dragons. I have been working with the dragons and my dragon aspect for a really long time. Now, again, as I just stated with the elementals, there's negative polarity dragons, there's positive polarity dragons, and there's dragons that are trapped and fallen and locked into this inverted matrix, and then there's dragon beings from other realms and other densities and dimensions. They hold their own specific magic and energetics. They are obviously time travelers. They are keepers of gold. They have done a lot for us. We have the dragon lines of earth, and there are also the trapped dragons that need to be released once they are freed of this inverted matrix. So you need to be careful when working with anything and all things, what their alignment is, what their agenda is. Is this on the up and up? Is it something that you actually want to experience? The dragons bring a lot of wisdom and a lot of protection. They're a very ancient species, and they have a ton of knowledge to assist. And it's been quite devastating as well what we have done to the dragons. You know, if you look at our lore or our fiction of how we were you know, prized to go find and kill a dragon, they basically had to hide a lot for their lives. And I'm not saying that some of them didn't deserve that, because there are definitely some negative dragons, especially of the Orion group collective, though many of them are very loving creatures, and they have assisted us and protected us and continue to protect a lot of Gaia as guardians. So I have found it very powerful in my past to work with my dragon aspect, especially when I need fierce protection. Their family systems are really intriguing, because obviously, you know, being cold-blooded, they don't come across as the same warm-hearted, loving, emotional experience. They have a very different experience, but they still love very fiercely. So when I've needed kind of a thicker skin, or to feel more protected and to feel more loyalty in my bond with self or another, I've often called on my dragon aspect. Okay, so you also ask about the world server pyramids. So pyramids, again, you know, as we're talking about the Merkaba, pyramids can access stargates. If we look at the shape of a pyramid, the energetics is funneled to the apex. And through that way, the energy is sent up, usually in like a laser light beam, to be concentrated for whatever that specific pyramid was designed to access. For example, different pyramids in Egypt, we know, have been programmed with stargates to Sirius, different portals. And So when it comes to the world server pyramid, you know, Parker, I haven't worked with the world server pyramid consciously in quite a while. I used to work with it a lot. And at this point, I don't know its alignment because, you know, we've talked about before in the past, I used to activate the world server pyramid and the world pyramid. The world server pyramid, as I knew it in that time, was one had to be at a certain density, frequency, vibration to access it as a protective measure. The world pyramid was more mass consciousness. Everybody could access and offered information to the world pyramid. And the world server pyramid was of a higher frequency, which served to protect and assist to manifest on mass consciousness level, hopefully in the way that we preferred. Though, as we know, we live in an inverted matrix. I no longer know if the world server pyramid has been compromised or not. I haven't worked with it in a long time, and you know, unfortunately, there is a lot of compromising with a lot of stargates, a lot of portals, a lot of pyramids, a lot of things in the inverted matrix. So I really don't know how to answer that anymore because as you've seen, I've withdrawn, I've kind of redacted a lot of the way in which I used to access things, because we can have, you know, good intentions, but if we're not 100% clear on what is that energy being funneled to, because pyramids are very, very powerful. You know, if one notices the way any event space is set up, you know, churches, mosques, temples, concert halls, theaters, you name it. They're all designed, whether it's indoor, outdoor, temporary space, whatever. They're designed to funnel energy up and out at the apex to concentrate it. Whomever is controlling that venue, that theater, that's collecting the mass energetics that's being built and amplified in that space. For example, how much energy do we build at a concert? You know, how much energy do you build at Sunday Mass? And that energy gets funneled up to whomever has access and is controlling that pyramid, that space. That may be feeding copious amounts of loose energy and really charged manifestation frequencies to those beings that maybe we don't want to be feeding. So that's just something to note, you know. And again, I'll repeat, I'm not clear anymore on the world server pyramid and its alignment, though. You know, I'm very wary these days when it comes to the inverted matrix. So, yes, and we also have our own personal pyramids of light, you know, and our Merkaba. So however you want to view it. Again, as we talked about, you're rotating and running your torus field. I activate the torus field in the heart, and then also the torus field of the body. And so that in its own are personal pyramids of light that's anchoring at a Stargate. And so making sure that we are sovereign in our own space so we know that we have command of our personal pyramids of light, of our Merkabahs, and they're not getting hijacked is very, very important. And they're very powerful. It's the way this world functions. It's the way in which the physics plays out anyway. We might as well be conscious of it and utilizing it to our benefit. So, Miss Nikki French, you say, thank you for the great video and love your work. I had a question and wanted to get your thoughts. What's your view on the idea of all of us coming in with guardian angels? Do you see these as beings part of the false light agenda as well? Since my awakening, I've intuitively felt that I should only work through my higher self and declare that only light that I connect to is from the true original prime creator of my soul. I will only engage with other spirits through the higher self deems to be in my highest good, almost acting as gatekeeper of sorts, to not allow any false light beings to interact with me that are not aligned with original prime creator, my higher self and truth. However, I have of course been connected with guardian angels that continue to interact with and almost get a feeling that they are actually higher aspects of self. Either way, I wanted to get your take on the idea of guardian angels and if there are any recommendations for people to be able to double check their authenticity as well. or if you think they are all a part of the false light agenda and should protect our energy fields from them as well. Your thoughts and feedback are very much appreciated, and thank you in advance. You're welcome, Nikki French. Okay, so we got several questions in here. Now, first of all, guardian angels. I would like to break down the etymology of angel, first of all. This word angel is important to understand because, as some of us know, our language is chock full of spell casting, okay? Sound and vibration, tonal frequency is very powerful. And our English language especially, all languages, but especially English language, is chock full of spell casting, which means certain words have been written in certain ways, so when we say them, we actually cast a spell. So, angel, the etymology of angel, the root or origin meaning, is messenger, it's errand spirit, it's mounted courier. That's very general, you guys. So I want to be clear on that, because throughout the times and teachings and beliefs and entrainments, we view angels as often and usually very specific, divine beings that have powers and ability and are here to serve under the hierarchy of God, in whatever way you deem that. Though an angel is a very general word for messenger, okay? So angels is so general that it can be used in the same way we use the word people, in my experience. That's how I view this now. So, you know, our angelic lines have been, we probably all have angelic DNA. There have been many, many rounds of what we now term angelic species and beings that associate with us and that come forward. When we talk about the false white light, I know that we're wanting to look specifically at what we also term the fallen angels. So first, it's important to understand that you might have a specific idea of what an angel is, but because the actual terminology of angel is so general and vast and vague, that many, many different types of beings could put themselves under the category of angel and misrepresent what you perceive and believe them to be. So that's a form of spell casting. I want you to be aware of that. Now, the guardian angel experience, where a guardian angel is assigned to you when you come into this matrix, I don't know about that one. I really, you know, the way I perceive the whole process of reincarnation is that it has been hacked and is controlled in a very specific manner. So any guardian angel, from my perspective, that would be assigned to you as you're entering into the inverted matrix, I perceive as having the agenda to uphold the inverted matrix. Now, I want to be really clear on this, because there are absolutely angelic beings that work to assist, and many of them are us. Okay, they're absolutely fallen angelic beings that work to our detriment, and many of them are us. And there are also beings that, just like we all have good and bad, right? We've all inherited the karma that we've been playing out, macro to micro. So can be the same with the angels. As I've stated before, a really easy, crude way to view this is that the angels, as again the being that Barbara Marciniak used to channel, says look at the angels as the police force of the matrix. And I like this representation because for me it's easy to look at the police force in general, and some of them I would deem as police. Some of them I would deem as peacekeepers. And if I needed help, I would rather talk to the peacekeeper than the police. So I do believe that there, in a big grand scale, many of them especially the ones that are interfacing with us a lot, and we see in terms of miracles, are the peacekeepers and or the police, okay? They do assist. They do offer assistance, if you're in the gang. You're looked after as long as you're within that scope of their umbrella, okay? And they will protect you. I have many times been saved by angels and protected by them, especially when I align with them. I have seen miracles happen for me many, many times. I do not doubt their abilities or, their higher frequential existence. What I do doubt now is their affiliation and their agenda. So again, you're the only one that's going to be able to know this. You have to check in with self. If you no longer align with what we term the false white light, redact it, revoke it, rebuke it in any beings affiliated or under it or upholding it, and then see who's left, okay? Now, I want to clarify some of the ways in which you've termed, you say here, I connect to original true / original prime creator of my soul. Your soul is a technology that's overlaid onto your spirit. Your soul is often hacked. All of our souls are. So if this were me, Nikki, I would reword this. And also it's important to understand there's a creator, there's a demiurge of this physical experience, and then there is a prime creator of the infinity verse. They're different in a way. The prime creator of infinity verse, as per the law, is the truth, matter, antimatter, ether experience that I believe you're wanting to align with. The demiurge is the creator of the inverted matrix and the matrix as a whole. So they're not one and the same in regards to their omnipotent benevolence for your existence, is how I guess I'm going to say it. So align with prime creator, spirit, source of the infinity verse, okay? Because another thing too with higher self and soul aspects, again, we're a blend of all things. So a higher self, in my view of it now, is simply a part of my soul and spirit that is of a higher density than I in this now moment in my conscious form. That's a lot of different beings. I've incarnated thousands and thousands of times in different realities and timelines and you name it. So I've got infinite higher selves, again, spellcasting, right? Doesn't mean that I want all of those higher selves to be the one that is going to oversee me, because a lot of my higher selves are also false white light, or aligned with Saturnian, and we're all up in spellcasting, and we've done all of it. So, the thing here is to make sure that you're not just offering your fealty and your loyalty and asking for protection from your soul on a whole, or even now I'm saying higher self. I get, again, just like the word angel, you perceive it in a particular way, but how is it actually defined? What ways in which can they get in through the verbiage, right? That's really important to start looking at. So access spirit, access creator, source, prime of the infinity verse, however you want to term it, but be clear on the differences here. There is an ultimate creator source. There is a demiurge. They're different. And then there is everything in between. And then your soul is a technology that is what is keeping you separate from access to pure spirit. Doesn't mean that your soul is negative or evil. It just means that it is that much removed from spirit, just as the creator demiurge is that much removed from ultimate creator source prime. So I would look at that in the way that you word it. And again, you're the only one that's going to know what your truth is and how you feel safe and protected. And I'm going to invite you, as this whole process is, to know that you have the power and the protection within self-spirit, which is ultimately what is necessary to access in order to own your authority and be fully protected through and through. So the more we practice and work with the assistance inside self, even if we appreciate, other beings assisting us, because there are many that are here to assist, just like there are many that are here to harm, or trick or whatever. So I don't mean to, my personal perspectives on what maybe I've backed away from are no way, shape, or form need to be everybody else's. I just tend to be really I tend to go from one extreme to the other before I find my middle. And there's good reason for that in my own personal experiences. Okay, so I think that I answered your questions. Moving on to Shell Sam. Hey Chloe, really interesting info. What is your take on the law of one material? According to that, we make our polarity choice in this third density reality, but the fourth density upshift is now and for those who have chosen the positive. This will be our final incarnation in 3D. I would love to know if you perceive Ra and the Confederation as false white light or divine truth. Blessings. Okay, Shell, so the terminology, the law of one, of course, the Ra group brought through. The law of one, I absolutely abide by and I adhere to. We are all one. We are Creator Source Prime. I totally resonate with all of that. And no matter our polarity preferences, our alignments with false white light or darkness or Saturnian or Luciferian or benevolence, guardianship, whatever you want to say, it's still all under the umbrella of the law of one, even though a lot of the regressive races have chosen to start to recede and separate from the law of one to create their own anti-verse experience. And that is their free will. So at one point they did start under the umbrella of oneness, and then they chose to secede and remove themselves and drift further and further and further away from their spirit source essence, to the point where many of them no longer have the spark. Now the Ra, as you term it, the Ra and the Confederation, the Ra group, the Ra Oversoul cluster, at this point, I perceive Ra in the way that we receive Ra coming in now as what we would term negative polarity. I feel that the teachings of Ra have been inverted, and the beings have also moved through an inversion. I am not quite clear. I don't really believe that that was the initial origins of Ra. Though I do believe that our solar Stargate energetics, as Ra represents, solar, has been hijacked and inverted. So at this point, I do perceive Ra as, negative polarity, service to self, however we want to term it. I do think there was a time period when Ra was in alignment with service to others, and there's been an inversion. So I don't call forward the Ra grouping. As most of you know, I no longer channel. I find it dangerous. I prefer telepathic communication over channeling. And I used to channel Ra group, and I remember going back, looking at my channelings, once I had made this decision and learned about the false white light, and I was like, oh, I channeled the Ra group. Because what that means is when you channel, you give those beings or that consciousness or that energy full access to your DNA, your vessel, your codes. They can do what they want. They can hijack your Stargate. You'll never know it, guarantee you. So I've also seen some really upsetting things that have happened to me through my 15 years of channeling nonstop from beings that I trusted, and I've had to work very diligently with the beloved support of Lauda Leon of Sovereign Key to shut down those Stargates, extract access from my vessel, you name it, man. They were like kids in a candy store, hacking and taking, and so that's what channeling can open you up to, guys. Sorry to say it. Though, telepathic communication. It's, the infinity-versal language, very safe. You can communicate with anything and anyone. It's wonderfully fun, and you don't have to give up your vessel to do it. And same difference. I think people confuse channeling. But anyway, I digress. So I do align with the views of the law of one. We are all one. I do not trust or choose to access the energetics of Ra. I do think it has been inverted and infiltrated. And I think that they are a big part of what's happening right now that many of us are fighting against. So I hope that answers your question, Shell. Leslie, hi. Last question I have here. And Leslie, your question came not from my YouTube channel, World Peace Projects, but from Awakening Your Truth channel, where I also post my videos. And she says, and I believe this also referred to the video of the Anunnaki agenda, and or the video of I Do Not Consent, where I gave very clear spoken revocations. She says, beings will and do go against all laws if they think that they can do what they will want, and if they want to break the law, even the immutable universal law, they are here breaking the laws before modern man. So how do you claim these decrees work, especially the Anunnaki lizard creator gods? Leslie, this is a great question, because from your perspective, first of all, I feel anger and vengeance seething through this. And the thing with this is, in order for the decrees and the revocations and the affirmations and the declarations to work, we must have a level of sovereignty and strong will accessed already. We must know our truth and know that our truth is commanded as per the law of the infinityverse. It's not just enough to say it. If we haven't done our shadow work, if we haven't commandeered our spirit and our soul, if we still are fully hacked and triggered by them, and they've got, their tethers and claws and whatever you want to call it, and protuberances in us, sucking our loose energy, we can say these things till we're blue in the face, but it doesn't mean it's going to assist. We have to do the shadow work and recommand our authority and own our sovereignty in order for our spell casting, for our word to be bond. It's very important. Talking can seem as just a third density experience, but you have to own that frequency. So it takes more than just the words, though the words help, absolutely. The sound frequencies of this universe, sound was possibly one of the first things ever created. It's very powerful. So, you utilize many different facets to assist, though you have to own this truth in yourself. And if we still have hate towards them and anger towards them and spite, they're going to be able to override these experiences, because we have to find our forgiveness. We have to find the way in which we don't get triggered anymore. We have to reverse engineer the experiences in which they have ultimately hacked us or tricked us, or they do still, to a certain extent, have to abide by certain laws. Yeah, they break the laws a lot, and yeah, they manipulate. Though we are under the governance of the multiversal, infinityverse laws, and if we own that through and command it, we do have a very strong level of protection, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of diligence. And so I hope that answers the question, but no, I don't by any means believe that it's enough just to invoke, and revoke. We have to do the work. So when I put that out as your prereq, so that you're already doing your shadow work. Though it assists, because when they see, even if you can still get hacked, and your frequency vibration starts resonating with the power and the energetics of these revocations and these affirmations and confirmations, they do up-level your frequency. They help support you and boost you and protect you to a certain point, as you are also continuing to work to move into your full command and sovereignty. So I hope that answers, but I have to say, Leslie, when I read this, I immediately feel, I I feel, I might be going ahead of myself here, so I apologize if this is too much, but I feel them inserted into your back body behind your heart. So I see why you're triggered and lit up by this, because I feel like they're looshing you from behind. And that would definitely instigate a trigger towards them as well. So, you know, I think that the reason that this triggered you is because there's more work to be done. As, you know, all of us have learned and are learning when we get triggered and see things that's something that we could look at. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Please, please, please like this video. It helps me. Subscribe, share my videos. That's a great way to support. And I really would love to see you at the 5-series course of the Advanced Matrix Decoding that's starting this Sunday, February 23rd. I hope you have a fabulous